souls, transforming worlds to a better wonder to behold. No poverty, zero hunger for the elderly or younger. Good health and well-being, good education, empowering women to become sensation. Clean water, sanitation is a right of every nation. Economic growth inclusive and sustained through industry, innovation, and purely dedication. Yeah, infrastructure be gain. Reduce inequality for sure. Make human settlements secure. Take urgent actions to combat climate change. Conserve life below water and land. Ensure we do not estrange. Justice for all, a peaceful and empathetic nations. Let us all partner to achieve these goals and provide much needed salvation. Each one teach 10, no compensation. Each one teach 10, no compensation.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining. Good morning, good evening, namaste, hola, bonjour, keremed, terve, and maravan. This is Namya Joshi, your host for the day. Welcome to episode 101 of the podcast Each One Teach 10, an amazing world of STEM, an inspiring venture where we'll be discussing that STEM is part of every day for every kid. We all will learn together how to build a STEM culture. Well, for today, I'm very excited to have here with us Kris Kashtanova, who is an AI educator, consultant, activist, and speaker. She has a background in software development and 10 years of working in the industry as a backend developer, BA in journalism, specializing in human rights and art, commercial photography, art, and activism. Kris has worked in several startups as head of AI and AI consultant. At the moment, she works at Adobe as Senior Creative Evangelist, Artificial Intelligence since 2023. It is my honor to have you here today, Kris. So, how are you doing today?
Hello, thank you so much for having me here. Good morning. Um, I'm doing pretty well. I'm in New York City. It's an early morning here. And yeah, I'm looking forward to talk to you today. It's a big honor.
Thank you so much, and I'm honored too to have you here on episode 101. We just marked 100 episodes on the 16th of November, so I'm happy to begin the second century of the podcast with you. So thank you so much. And before we begin with the questions, could you apprise us with a little bit about yourself and the work that you do?
So currently I work at Adobe, and my role is creative AI evangelist and community advocate. So my main role is building a community and like nurturing that community and making sure that every person who uses Adobe products and products that have AI in those products are heard, their feedback is heard. Adobe is a company that really cares about people's feedback. So my job is basically to be around people and to see how we can improve the product and AI in particular. Um, Other than that, I really love teaching, and I take every opportunity I have to teach. And I think that's how we met. I think I taught earlier this year, I taught a workshop on creativity and AI. And that's something I'm really passionate about, like teaching, especially virtually, because it gives an opportunity for many people to join in. So yeah, that's what I do.
Indeed, in your words totally emphasize your passion for teaching and how you wanna spread the ripple of change and put an impact on the people, and of course value their opinion as well. So that's amazing. So You have a background that spans artificial intelligence, art, journalism, and activism. So, how have these diverse fields influenced your approach to teaching and working with generative AI?
So, I am now 39 years old, and I remember how when I was 16, I decided to become a software engineer, and I thought that's what I was going to do. Actually, quite funny because when I was doing software engineering, I actually wanted to be a software engineer for a program like Photoshop or Paint because I thought it's just such a cool way to create. Um, I was born in a place where it's like everything was scarce, paper paper in particular. And when I realized that I can just draw and like erase it and then draw over, and it's like amazing, I can do it indefinitely, that inspired me a lot. So I became a software engineer. And then I was 16, and I think that choice wasn't it. I was too young to make a choice for my entire life. So after I worked as a software engineer, I realized that actually what I really, really enjoy doing is working with people. And being a software engineer, I only worked with maybe 5 people at a time, and we sat in the same room. Internet wasn't as fast back then. There were no video conferencing, nothing like that. So I just felt I lacked that human contact too much. And I started being curious about different professions, and I was in between journalism and psychology. And then journalism kind of won. I discovered my passion to photography, and after that I just couldn't lock myself in front of the computer. I needed to be around people. And when you start working with people, you start hearing problems and issues, and that's how activism came to my kind of to my interests. So it almost felt like it was a chain of different events that led me to kind of discover new and new things that humans can do on this planet. And at up until maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I didn't know how it all is going to kind of piece together. And I didn't know that software engineering will come handy because I stopped doing it. I was doing full-time photography and journalism, and that was kind of my life. But when when the generative AI like technology, I would say like revolution started, I thought, wow, all my skills actually are quite useful because I can learn really fast, and software engineering background was very helpful, especially at first when technology was still at the beginning and when you had to code a little bit to get something done. So I feel like all of those skills came together and kind of was helpful. And I don't know, when I was a kid, my dad used to tell me, like, learn everything, everything will come handy. And I didn't believe it quite. But now I actually do, because even things like drawing a little bit, I'm not a professional painter, but I can sketch a little bit. Even those things came handy. So it almost felt like everything I learned during my lifetime had some impact. So, yeah, that would be my message. If you're learning something, you think it's useless, you never know. Maybe it'll come up handy somewhere later in your life, like it happened to me.
Indeed, I agree to that thing that you should not think that something that you're learning is just for fun right now. You may not even realize that that something that you're learning may be used in the future. Like you said, from an early age, you had aspirations of becoming a software engineer, and you were specifically drawn to working with Photoshop because of its creative possibilities, like drawing and erasing. And while this initial passion sparked your interest in technology, You also realized that you enjoyed working with people more than just focusing on the technical aspects. And that curiosity led you to explore various fields, including journalism, where you learned the importance of connecting with people and activism too, wherein it deepened your understanding about societal issues and what we can do to solve them. And your journey portrays that over the next few years, your diverse experiences converged, making you uniquely equipped to navigating the rise of generative AI. And you see this technology as a perfect blend of your skills, using coding to achieve practical solutions while leveraging your background in art, journalism, and activism to your entire approach and to enrich the entire approach. Of course, that is absolutely amazing. Right. So, we know that generative AI is reshaping creative industries. And what do you think is the most exciting potential of AI for artists and creators?
I think the most exciting potential is to find a way to use AI in new ways. Because I think right now what is happening is that everything we do right now is kind of what we already can do without AI. Of course, we can do it more effectively and more quickly, and maybe have more choices. We can brainstorm in more ways, but it would be incredibly interesting to see what we can do with AI, what haven't been done before. And to illustrate this, of course, I don't know what it is, because that's something we need to explore and as humanity to like discover new ways. But I think if you know, but for example, when filmmaking became a thing, what people used to do at first, they would film theater plays. And if you watch those theater plays just being filmed, it's not particularly exciting to watch. It's just a theater play and the camera is still and it's just like filming what's going on stage. But I think what became really exciting is when people realize that they can do something new. They can use different cameras, they can use different angles, they can film it in a very different way than theater. So if you would show a film, a modern film, to someone who doesn't know it was ever filmed as a theater play, they will never guess that was even a thing. And I think that's what's happening with AI right now. We are de facto kind of filming that theater play instead of finding those incredible ways that were not known before and can be like really cool way to create art or to create experiences. And there are some people who are experimenting in that field, and there are definitely artists emerging um, into the scene. But it will be so interesting if more people will keep experimenting and finding new ways, and also combining what we already know as humans, our natural human creativity, with these AI tools that we have. The lighting changed. That's because there is sunlight outside. So, yeah.
Absolutely, I agree. I think you're able to believe that the most important and exciting potential of generative AI for artists and creators lies in discovering entirely new ways to leverage the technology rather than, simply replicating tasks that could be done with little less efficiency without AI. And while much of what is currently being done with AI could be still achieved through the different methods, but the true potential of AI, which I also believe lies in pushing boundaries and exploring creative avenues that haven't been explored before. And you stated such creative examples as well. And you've emphasized the importance of innovation and finding unique applications of AI, which will again open up new possibilities never imagined, which will again transform the way artists and anybody approaches their work. So thank you so much for sharing your insights on that. Right. So, in your experience, how do community led discussions shape the evolution and perception of AI technologies?
I think every single time when Adobe releases any feature, really, we share different ways, different creative ways how that technology could be used. And of course, people in the community come with their own ways, completely surprising and completely amazing ways how to use those. But several of us who work as community advocates, we usually make some kind of demos and just show them what can be done with the technology. And it's very interesting how the community actually often comes up with ideas and comes up with suggestions that we take to developers and we take to executives, and sometimes those things get developed because the community kind of came up. They say, oh, actually I need that particular thing, or I need that particular thing. And uh, I think it's a very smart way to develop, because before joining Adobe, I always worked in a very small team in a startup. But here it's a very big company, and it's a very big community of people who are using products and who also in different fields. They will be filmmakers, and they will be image makers, and they will be people who even make something completely different. Maybe they make games, and they would come up with things how we can make their process more effective. And very often we evangelists just start advocating internally inside the company, because the thing is that developers and scientists and executives, they are often so busy working with actually developing a product that they don't have as much time to talk to regular people, to talk to everyone who uses the product. But that's my job, that's our job, to make sure to see if for example, even like very easy example, user interface, because sometimes we would notice that users may be using one feature more often than the other, and then we can bring it in front and just make it more simple. Or we can, for example, okay, here is an example I just remembered. For example, Adobe Firefly, that's our product where you can generate images, writing text, or you can use your own image, your own sketch as a reference and generate an image with AI. And we noticed that a lot of people are struggling writing prompts. They they don't really know what to write, and they struggle coming up with descriptions. So we decided to make this system that is helping. When you start typing, it kind of suggests you a number of prompts, and then you can choose. And maybe some of them won't be what you want, but at least it's a starting point that you can take and you can edit, and it just simplifies the process. So that feature was developed just because people were saying that it's always hard to come up with a description, that maybe they're more visual and it's not very easy to come up with words. So like stuff like this, and there is a lot of stuff like that. Like pretty much every single release, everything we do, we get so many people writing comments on social media, or we go to an event and we have a conversation with everyone who came, and it's incredibly useful.
Absolutely. You've highlighted the crucial role of community-led discussions because, particularly through platforms like Adobe, because you mentioned that when Adobe releases new features, the community shares insights on how these tools can be creatively used, with even educators often showcasing their innovative approaches. And of course, these discussions, along with product demos are taken to executives, influencing further development to cater to the user needs. And like you said, Adobe's large engaged community continues to contribute to ideas that streamline the process and, of course, are able to improve user experience. And you, as the evangelist, play a key role in spreading effective practices, taking the feedback from the community, such as which features are the most popular, which again helps you to refine the user interfaces, like you mentioned about Adobe Firefly. And as people were struggling with how to write their prompts or get the accurate results, so you gave them suggestions that it can lead to what they want, and can help it to make it more intuitive and accessible. And just to share, I my mom created like my 18th birthday cake with Adobe Firefly. So she just added a few prompts on what could it look like. So because I believe in the power of the universe, that it conspires to your thoughts. So she added a few things like that, and maybe I can open it up on my phone and show it to you. And whatever she created, this was that cake, if you can see it. So it's 18.
Wow,
That's
that's
the actual cake.
amazing. That is so amazing. That's a beautiful cake and such an amazing idea. Wow.
Yeah. And thanks to Adobe Firefly for that.
Oh, I am so glad to hear that. I actually think it's a great idea for food and for cooking. Um,
Mhm.
I think that's one thing that I want to mention. It was the previous question about potential of AI, and I think one of the potential is combining things that we humans don't think about combining. You know how in the past when they were developing those programs for chess and AI was winning every single time, even the most amazing chess players. And they noticed that the reason why AI wins is because AI doesn't have emotions or feelings, and
Mhm.
it can sacrifice the queen right away. And humans usually hold into the queen because it's such a precious, most important chess piece. So, because AI doesn't really have feelings, it's a program. It can combine things, or it can kind of. I don't like using word think because it doesn't really think. Only humans can think, and animals can think. I think. Um, but what I think is would be really cool is finding a way to combine things that are not combined yet. For example, in food, when we are cooking a cake, we often think about things that we already saw or we already know that can be cake, but everything can be cake. It can be like made into cake. It can be kind of designed into a cake. And I think with tools like AI, kind of combining things that were previously not combined and kind of finding ways to combine those things in a unique the recipe itself can be quite unique. Definitely some knowledge in cooking is needed because often AI suggests things that are not gonna taste too well, but
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I think has a big potential.
Mhm. Absolutely. I mean, there's always a scope of improvement. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Well, I have a fun question for you. What is your favorite hobby?
Oh, that's such a good question. Ah, you know what? I I am very creative, so creativity is my job, but it's also my hobby. So I
Mhm.
like making things, and there are many things I tried. So I like trying new activities to see which activity will take me to the feeling of flow. And I think my hobby is actually finding this flow in any activity. For example, I tried stop motion animation. And what I like doing is, because we all spend so much time in front of the screens and in front of phones, so I wanted to try something that is more analog. And I like making things out of clay and animating them, just like frame by frame. And I do use Photoshop a little bit to help me clean my frames, because otherwise it wouldn't be as kind of smooth. And
Mm-hmm.
then putting something like this together, and I think I can just lose myself in activities like this, like doing making something with hands. I really like my plants. I don't have a garden. I live in Manhattan, so there is a garden is my apartment pretty much. I have lots of plants, and I do like taking care of them. And I think they also inspire me creating. So that is one hobby. It's like creativity in every way. That is as far from my job as possible. Um, and then surprisingly, I always can use it in some way in my job. It just inspires me to kind of bring it all back. Another thing that I found, well, I'm 39 and I never thought that would happen to me. But one of my big hobbies is also cleaning. I don't know, it's just so soothing for me to like organize stuff in my apartment and on my desk. I used to be extremely messy, and I was one of those people who just was so focused on studying that I had this giant mass of stuff on my desk all the time and like very little space for creativity. But eventually I realized that the cleaner my space, the less stuff I have around me, the better I create, and the more kind of like I feel like the space out is a space in my head. So since I realized that, I began to kind of organize my place, and I like when things are like, but I'm still very messy, and that's why I have to. Cleaning is almost like a hobby. If I don't clean every day, then the place gets messy in like 1 second. I feel like it's my gift to make everything messy wherever I come. If I had a superpower, it would be just like mess that follows me. So that is something I found. And then I like working out. I'm not athletic by no means, but I, again, because I feel when my body is healthy, I can create more and I'm more productive. So I do have this walking pad near my desk. So when I'm on my meetings at work, I walk, and it helps me move, and it affects my creativity. So basically everything I do is kind of connected with my creativity, and I try to make it as effective as possible.
Wow, these are such amazing hobbies. And I think I do have a similar one, working out. I love to exercise in the morning. I mean, I start my day by doing it because it helps me to keep myself, focused and have brimming with joy. And also at the same time, I'm relaxed during the day. And besides that, like I love to read a lot because I think I'm most into reading self-help books. So they help me to, use that knowledge into daily life. And again, it helps to shape my thinking as I'm all of us are learners. So it helps me explore more. And again, I love to play basketball. It's a hobby that I've had since
Wow,
forever.
that's
So yeah.
amazing. Basketball sounds amazing. I haven't played in many years. At school, we did have basketball and volleyball, but I haven't played. We did have pickleball this year. Adobe actually had something like an event for employees, and
Mhm.
we had a pickleball. I never played pickleball before, and it became very popular in New York recently. I always wanted to play, but you need three more people to play, and most people I know are already so good that they were not my level. So I was very thrilled when Adobe rented a pickleball course, and they hired a coach to teach us. So I did try to play that. I loved it, and I told myself I'm gonna definitely sign up for classes. I never did, but I'm gonna do it. Um, yes, and reading. I I didn't mention reading because I just feel reading became just, I don't know, like breathing for me.
Mhm.
I read all the time. I do love reading books about AI, actually. They get outdated way too fast. It's
Yep,
almost, it's
true.
so like funny because I buy books, and by the time I get the book and I finish reading it, everything is already different. But I still do enjoy reading those. And recently I started making myself to read fiction. I wasn't reading fiction before. I was more reading self-help and non-fiction books because I wanted to be effective. But recently I started reading fiction, and I do love Japanese authors a lot because I think it's such a different pace of life from the US where I live. And yeah, the last book I read was called Before the Coffee Got Cold, and it was very like interesting. I just read it in one go. I couldn't put it down until I finished it. So yeah, what's your favorite book?
My favorite book has been Ikigai, and that is like one book that I can always, go back and read again because it helps you to understand, what is your mission, your passion, your vocation. And in fiction, Harry Potter series will always be my favorite.
Wow, I love that. I have Ikigai on my bookshelf. I just looked at it this morning. By coincidence, I did not know that was your favorite book. And I thought was that Ikigai has AI in the title.
Yep.
That was my
Yeah.
thought.
Oh, wow. I didn't notice that before. That's interesting.
I think it's because AI in Japanese means love.
Hmm.
So probably there is a kanji in it that means something you love. I'm
Okay.
learning Japanese, so
Interesting. Amazing. I only know it's konnichiwa. Is that a Japanese word?
konnichiwa.
I just know that. I
Yeah,
just know
hello.
that. Hello,
Yes,
konnichiwa.
yes.
Amazing. Right. So I know Zarya of the Dawn is your creation. Can you share the story behind its creation and the role AI has played in it?
So I started Zarya of the Dawn actually before AI. I was taking self portraits during the pandemic. It was a very lonely time, it was very isolated time. Before the pandemic, I worked with people a lot. I was a photographer. I traveled a lot. And then all of a sudden, everything was shut down. We couldn't see each other, and all of us were like in our apartments. So I started writing this kind of series of photos and short stories about a young woman who woke up in New York, and it's completely abandoned, and she doesn't know what happened, and her memory is a little bit kind of like there are definitely problems in her memory because she doesn't remember what happened, but she does remember like where she lived in the city and some other stuff about the city and her life. And she starts exploring New York, and New York looks completely abandoned, and there are no people, and there is no explanation what happened. And then the story goes into kind of her accepting that she's of her own and she needs to find her own way around this world. And then she starts traveling between worlds. But those worlds are more about her emotions and feelings. So in each world she comes to, it has many dimensions, and the world depends on the way she feels. So some worlds would smell a certain way and look a certain way, and every world she goes to, she would learn a lesson. So this was kind of a premise, and the reason I started writing it was because I was learning about this psychology technique called ACT, which is acceptance commitment therapy, and it's about how you accept things you cannot change, but you commit on improving your life. And it's an interesting field in psychology, and I was really into it. So I decided to write a comic book that would have parts of those kind of tools from that psychology thing, but in a more like conversational way, so people could kind of read it and feel calm and feel and maybe learn something, and it would help them to feel a little bit better during the pandemic. And at the time there was no AI, so I just tried to use photographs to illustrate each story. So I would dress myself up and I would use Photoshop to create those different worlds. Sometimes I would build sets and not use Photoshop and just make it all in camera. But I was doing it for a while. I was doing it for more than a year, every single day. I was really committed and I really had time. And then when AI happened, I just thought, wow, I can tell the story in a new way. Because I think when I was creating my own images, I was limited because first I couldn't create some of the worlds. I did try. I used 3D and I used Photoshop, but also my images were a little bit repetitive because it was usually just me, and like you couldn't see my face. It was just me at a distance, standing in the middle of the world. And I think there was some kind of charm in it, but it was repetitive in a way. And with AI, I could create more comic book style images. And at the time, AI was still at the very beginning, so you couldn't do much with it. And right now, it's has so much potential. You can sketch, and you can make that comic book way better, and you can control AI better now. But back then, it was just like writing text and generating like hundreds of images to find that one that would kind of work. But I did. I was really into it. I was in a state of flow, and I made this first issue of Zarya of the Dawn. And not a lot of people were making comic books at the time, and there were maybe 2 or 3 of us who connected, and each of us was making a comic book, and then the whole group of people just exploded. There were so many people making comic books and graphic novels, and even doing it in a group, which was amazing. So yeah, and after I did first part, I just thought AI is something I want to do, and I want to learn as much as I can about AI and how it's trained and how can we make it better. And yes, that was my my story with that.
That is so amazing and inspirational. Like you said, Zara of the Dawn began as a project before the advent of AI, inspired during the pandemic when, like you said, everything was shut down and we could have, just have a relaxing rhythm of having nothing to do. But you started writing short stories centered around a young woman who wakes up alone in the abandoned city of New York with no explanation of what happened. And she navigates the desolate world and she begins to travel between realms each symbolizing her emotion and internal struggles. And in every word, she learned a valuable lesson, reflecting the psychological concept of acceptance and commitment therapy, and a technique that is again aimed at improving one's life. So like you said, with the introduction of AI, the creative process took a new dimension that allowed you to generate unique, captivating images that complemented the story's emotional depth as well. And it helped bring a comic book style to life, and adding a fresh visual charm to narrating while avoiding repetitive or generic designs as well. And again, the result was visually and emotionally rich experience for you as well as I think it is the best way that showcases a blend between technology and storytelling in a very innovative way. Thank you so much once again for sharing that. And I'm sure our audience listening to us will go ahead and check it out. And I will too as well.
Yeah, it was translated by the community to 30 languages, I think. They it wasn't my idea. I wasn't thinking much about it, but at first there was actually someone from India who suggested to translate it, and he was a painter. He paints birds, and I was so moved because I saw his work, and he wrote a lot of books about birds. And I was moved, and I said, of course, if you want to do that, you can do it. And so he was the first one who did it. And then after he did that, lots of people suggested, and it doesn't have a lot of words, to be honest, and it's quite short. I was planning to turn all of my stories into that, but AI was so limited at the time that I understood that if if I turn every story, they will just look very repetitive and not very visually pleasing. It would be just like talking heads, because you couldn't even do very like complicated action or movement at the time. So I just decided to leave it at that one issue and move on with my life. And who knows, maybe in future I will do something with it. I still have actually a dream to learn how to draw and actually draw it out, and
Mhm.
just use AI as a brainstorming tool to kind of help me out with planning those frames. So who knows, maybe when I retire, that's what I'll do.
Yep, looking forward to it, absolutely. We have some comments as well. Oh goodness, hello Kris and Namya the Great. What an amazing beginning of the second century of each one teach 10. Thank you so much, Mr. Frivlin. There is a question as well for you. How can beginners adopt the creative behavior in AI applications usage?
So each of us have interests. Each of us have different passions, and they're different for every person. Whatever you are already doing and loving, for example, if you like coding, if you like to code, or if you wanted to learn how to code and you never tried it, try using AI to teach you a little bit about it. And at the moment, there are lots of tools that you can use to take your passion and kind of take it on another level. Um, if you like food, check out what you can do, what you can create. Like maybe you can make a custom cake, and using AI for brainstorming and creating something unusual. If you like sports, you can learn things, and you can kind of brainstorm things. You can come up with maybe new ways. You could kind of practice that sport. You can even kind of find ways in your life how to improve your life with AI. Like I was really afraid of flying, and I remember I asked ChatGPT, is there anything I can do? And I did it on the flight when I was quite scared. And I remember it just wrote something like, think about your values. Why are you on that flight? And it just moved me so much, because I thought, yes, the experience of flying is quite challenging for me, but I'm going to be with those people who are waiting for me. I was on my way to San Francisco, and I was on my way to teach. And it was such a powerful moment for me. And definitely a human therapist. I do have a human therapist. Adobe offers us therapists. So it's not just AI. It's great to use it together with a human, and especially if it's anything like psychology or medicine, you definitely need a human person, because AI tends to make mistakes. But in a lot of cases, with your own hobbies, with your own interests, you can start using AI to help you brainstorm, to help come up with new ideas, with new projects. You can make video games with ChatGPT and ask it to explain it to you, uh, like pieces of code. What I encourage people doing is not just taking AI as like being lazy, but actually learning from it and becoming a better professional by using that tool. And now there are lots of other I don't know why coding comes to mind, but any other hobby, just start learning, start experimenting. All of these tools are quite easy to learn right now. For example, Adobe Firefly, it's so easy to learn how to use it. If you go on the website, it's just there is a user interface and you can just play around with it. You can experiment and see what happens. And then, of course, what I also recommend is joining the community. So, whichever social media you like most, there is new social media called Blue Sky. I just joined recently, and people there are quite helpful and supportive, and you can ask other people online. Then there is YouTube. There are a lot of amazing tutorials and channels on YouTube where you can learn. Then on X, Twitter, the AI community is really great. Again, LinkedIn, just ask whatever you don't know, you can ask other people or just post it online. And there is Discord. Pretty much every product has a Discord right now, like Adobe Firefly has Discord. I know that other products have Discord as well, and you can always ask people. So don't hesitate learning from other people if you are just starting. Don't hesitate collaborating. AI gives such a great way to collaborate with each other. You can make a comic book together. And unlike me, because I did mine quite early on, but you can actually use your own sketches, you can use your own art, you can use your own photographs. If you're not an artist, you are an artist now. You can start experimenting and making things and putting them together. And yeah, you can make toys, you can make so much stuff with it.
Indeed, absolutely. Thank you so much for answering that question. And before we end today's wonderful discussion, we would love to know where we can find you online and what message would like to give to the audience listening to us right now.
So I expect that a younger generation is listening to me. So I have absolutely no doubt that you will find incredible ways to use AI, and you have a voice. You need to understand that all the companies, all the lawmakers, they are listening to you. So if you have a vision, or if you have a thought, write about it, write an article. It's easier than ever to write and publish your own thoughts online. If you write your thoughts, you can publish them as LinkedIn article or as LinkedIn post, and you can email people in charge. If you want a particular feature, you can find executives and just write them online, or you can find community advocates. But the thing is, right now AI is quite young. The technology is young. It's up to us. It's not set in stone what is going to be. So it's really up to us what we want with it, how we want artists to be treated, how we want environment to be treated. So paying attention and kind of being aware what is going on, and this is one part. And the second part is, how can we create amazing stuff? How can we improve our life using this interesting new technology? So experimenting, and you have a creative, brilliant mind. The way each of you will use it will be very different from me or from anyone else. So, learning how to share this with others and how to kind of contribute into conversation, I think it's a great thing to do right now.
Indeed. Thank you so much for that lovely message. And listening to you has made me understand that AI empowers creators to push beyond traditional boundaries, offering the ability to not only craft compelling narratives but also bring those stories to life visually, capturing emotions and experiences in ways that were once unimaginable. And it's a fusion of technology and creativity that transforms how we connect with people around us and explore the depths of human expression. And yes, it is in the power of the youth to take it forward ahead and see how it can shape their lives and the lives of people around them. Thank you so much, Kris, for the lovely thoughts that you shared and the amazing insights that you shared with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and best of luck. You can find me. My website is Kris, starting from K dot art. I also I am Kris Kashtanova on LinkedIn, and please feel free to add me. I add everyone. Write a message if you have any questions. And I'm also on other platforms. I think if you just search Krista Kashtanova, you can find me by my name pretty much everywhere.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Kris, for coming on the podcast and sharing your insights. And thank you, everyone, for joining and listening to this episode. I'll see you in the next one. Till then, each one, teach 10. Have a nice day.
Have a nice day.